Welcome to my podcast, Shaping Your Journey. My name is Aldo Matza, percussionist, drummer, and artistic director of Costa Music, inviting you to join in conversation with friends, artists, professionals, and experts in our music world. And remember to subscribe and like if you like what you hear and see. Today, I have a really special guest who's come to Costa a number of times, and he is kind of the guy who's known as the not so traditional rudimental drummer. And I thought it would be really neat to have that trajectory, like shaping your journey. And as a marching drummer, please, Dominick Cuccia. Thanks for joining us, man.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Aldo. I really appreciate it. Happy to be here.
And so before we talk about the trajectory and the journey, I wanted to ask you, for those of you out there who may not know who Dominick is, start from the beginning. What was that spark? What was that thing that did it for you? We all have that very special time, and we usually remember what did it. What was that for you?
Yeah, I can remember precisely. It was 4th of July, 1976, the American Bicentennial. There was a parade going by our road in Carmel, New York, and it was like it had to be over 100 degrees out. I was 8 years old, and the parade's going by, and people are dropping out. Like just there. You see them sweating like crazy. People passing out. Ambulances pulling them up. Everyone looked miserable, and I thought to myself, that's what I want to do someday. I want to march in these parades. I want to do that. So then that fall, Mr. Mooney, the music teacher at the elementary school, passed out these forms to join this fife and drum corps. To me, it was a marching band. I didn't know where fifes and drums from drums and bugles or band instruments or bagpipes. It was just a marching band. And Mr. Mooney passed it out, and I knew from that moment I was going to be joining one of these corps and marching in these parades. So for me, it was right there. I knew what I wanted to do from 8 years old.
Nice. It's funny because I have my story in that world, because I started in a marching band too, but I played bugle
Ah,
because there are too many drummers and they wouldn't allow me to play drums.
wow.
So I played bugle in that marching band. Same story. I fell in love with this. And every time we go to a rehearsal, I would ask the drummers to show me stuff, so that I said, if you ever need a sub, if you ever need me to do something, I'll be ready. It never happened, of course, but I had fun. I left the band way before that ever happened because too many drummers. But that's funny.
Yeah.
And then what happened after that? Once you joined that marching band.
Yeah, so it was the Young Colonials Fife and Drum Corps from Lake Carmel, New York. And I got that form, and it was sponsored by the fire department. So I showed up at the fire department with my registration form, and it was filled. There were tons of people walking in to join this corps. And so they said, come on out Friday night and to your first rehearsal. And I thought, this is great. I'll get there. I'll learn a few drum beats, and I'll be marching in parades before you know it. And I got to my first lesson, and my drum instructor, Gary Gelati, he put the sticks in my hand and he did this weird grip. We know it as traditional grip. And he had me hold the sticks up, and he had me come down in slow motion, it seemed, and play one stroke and then bring it back up, and then play that second stroke and bring it back up. Do the same thing with the right hand, all in slow motion. And he says, all right, good job. Come back next week. So the next week I come back, I think I got this down, and here we go, barely faster than the week before. And he's like, great job, come on back next week. So at that point, I realized this was going to be a long-term process, how to play the drums. When you're a kid, you have this vision, I'll just pick up the sticks and I'll be going. But it was a long process to get in the drum line. And looking back, I'm grateful for that long process. Of breaking down the rudiments. Gary was grew up in the Earl Sturt's family tree of drumming. One of his early instructors was the legendary Earl Sturt's, and so Gary taught you how to break down rudiments in the Sturt's style. And And from there, he brought in another instructor because there were so many kids, he couldn't teach everybody. Gary brought in another instructor, Mary Comer. Now she's Mary Saunders. And Mary was the one who really took over with me, like really focused on breaking down rudiments. When you talk about giving your heart and your soul to your students and everything, that's really what I remember with her. We would go to parades. She marched in her own corps. And before the parade or a competition or something, she would grab me. I'm playing with my friends and everything. She would grab me, have me sling up a drum behind the school bus, and she would have me breaking down rudiments. And she really took her time with you, and it was just incredible. I learned. I didn't know I was going to be teaching someday. I just wanted to play the drums, but I learned so much about teaching and compassion as a teacher from Gary, and then of course from Mary. I learned that from an early age, and I didn't know that it was really going to come into play in later years in my life. So
Nice.
that was the early times.
You mentioned the gelati. Is that there was a gelati in Vermont?
Yep.
What's his first name?
Joe.
Joe. Yes,
Yes,
who actually joined us at COSA,
that's
and
right.
some years he was running our little shop for us. He was such a nice man. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Joe and Gary are brothers, and
Ah, okay.
yeah, they were both from the Danbury area, Danbury, Connecticut area, and now they're both up there. Actually, I heard that Joe may have bought a house in Italy, and he actually lives. I don't know all the time, full time or whatever, but he lives at least some of his life in Italy now.
Yeah.
And yeah, Joe. Funny enough, you mentioned he was at COSA my first year there, for he was a student at COSA, and when we did the student night, the student concert, Joe came out with all these kids, teenagers, and some couple in their 20s, and he played "Downfall of Paris" with the kids and everything. He really took to the whole COSA experience. Yeah, Joe's a great guy. Joe and Gary. I talk about them. They're some of the good guys in the world of drumming. Definitely really good guys.
Yeah. Well, here's a funny story, Dominic. During the whole COVID lockdown, I every once in a while just check in with different people how they're doing, and put in a phone call to Joe, and months later had not heard back. But I think it was about a month ago, he called me, apologizing for not calling back. He said, "Sorry, I was in Italy. I bought this place in Calabria, and the whole bit." So here's the funny thing. So did I. and and I said, "Joe, seriously?" He said, "Yeah, we bought this little place in La Mezzia." And I said, "Okay, I'm like 45 minutes from you."
Wow.
I said, "I can't go in. Are you following me?" No, no. But I said, "That's fantastic because we're trying to build up a little colony down there.
Yeah.
And we're right on the Ionian, right on 300 steps from the beaches. It's
Uh-huh.
phenomenal. And the international airport." I said, "You're in a great place. So eventually we'll get more people to come around, and then we can have jam sessions, and maybe you can have another COSA down there."
Oh, that'd be great.
So he was happy. And I said, "Well, since you're going back there so often, I'll introduce you to some people who are there, who also speak English, and you'll feel a little more comfortable, and that'll be nice. And they're also musicians,
Right.
so there you go. Small world, right?"
Absolutely small world.
That's
That's incredible. See, I didn't even know when I mentioned that you knew. That's awesome.
it's funny, but
Yeah.
when getting back to your your trajectory and your like that path that took you playing in the marching band and all of that. Then I know you were at West Point. What happened before that got you to West Point?
Okay, so growing up in the Young Colonials in the Fife and Drum Corps, instructors changed and everything. And when I was 13, I actually left the Corps to march with a senior corps with my dad. The Young Colonials brought me back to teach beginners, and that's where my teaching started, 1981. And so now I'm teaching the Corps, and next thing you know, I'm back playing with the Corps and teaching. And now all the instructors were gone, and I became the head instructor as a teenager. Moving on from there, I just had a point in high school. I knew drumming was what I was going to do, And I ended up I was playing trumpet in high school, basically because my band director felt that I was getting so much from the drum corps, and he felt it was good for me to stay on a melodic instrument, because I wasn't a percussionist, I was a rudimental drummer, So then finally, I think my junior year of high school, I switched to percussion, and I knew I was going to school for music, and a lot of people, they know they want to go to this school, they want to go to that school, and I had a lot of people tell me different places you could go, giving names in my ear. I pulled this little card off the wall in outside our band room. It said Wilkes College, and that's in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. And I got the thing about auditioning. I went out there and auditioned. I met the percussion instructor, Bob Novak, and Bob is a Northeast Pennsylvania legend. And it was the perfect school for me because I wasn't real percussionist coming out of high school. I truly was a rudimental drummer who played some percussion, and so it was the perfect school for me to come into. Bob, took me from ground level. Whatever I knew about mallets, he threw it away and got really refocused me on what to do, but he never forgot about my rudimental drumming background. And, probably sophomore or junior year, he said to me, "Why don't you put something together and we'll do it on the percussion ensemble concert?" And, we took the percussion ensemble on tour, and he said, "Why don't we take it on tour?" My senior recital, rope drums again, like he had me studying everything like everybody else, but he had me keep going with my traditional or not so traditional world of rudimental drumming. So I finished college. I graduated in '90, and I taught for 1 year in public school situation, and the Hellcat spot opened up with the Westpoint band, and I knew that's what I wanted to do, and I sent my tape in and everything. Of course, back then it was tapes. It's not like now the digital downloads and all that. I sent my little cassette tape in, and they brought me in for the audition. And they said originally when you came in that they'd let you know after the audition you were going to go home, and they'd call you and let you know if you got the spot. So I went in, I did my audition, and after I finished, the Sergeant Major Dave Breezy said to me, "Why don't you stick around for a while? We would like to talk to you afterwards." And I kind of had a good feeling that things went my way. And sure enough, they offered me the spot that day. And 3 years in the Hellcats. I wish I could go back and talk to the 20-something-year-old kid who left the Hellcats, because I would tell him, "You stay in, don't leave." I've had a lot of great experiences, but I really wish I had stayed in the Hellcats for at least another enlistment, or maybe the 20. But from there, I can't complain because after 3 years in the Hellcats and doing some incredible things, we went to Germany with the Hellcats. We played Tattoo up in Canada. We played the big World Cup going on right now. We played one of the most incredible experiences I ever had. The World Cup in '94 was in the United States. They had World Cup championship games in the Meadowlands. And we went in, I think it might have been Bulgaria and Italy were the two countries playing. I'm probably wrong with names, but it was two countries, not the U.S., not Canada. And we got out there to play the national anthem. And we went and started playing the first one, could barely hear anyone else in the band. It was so loud, and just had to follow the conductor the whole way through, We finished that, and when it's time for the second national anthem, it was louder than the first. You couldn't hear a thing. I got chills because it was just such a surreal experience, and how much those people were, the fans were not only into their team, into their sport, but also into their country. You know what I mean? It was just such a beautiful experience, and that was one of the. In fact, I think it was the last gig I did with the Westpoint band. So, a lot of great opportunities, experiences there. From there, I went to Louisiana, to Natchitoches, Louisiana, and Ken Green was the percussion instructor back there. But I knew him when I was a kid. He's about 4 or 5 years older than me, and he grew up in the fife and drum world as well. and we used to play, play fife and drum musters together. We used to jam together. And his dad, the legendary Harold Green, I played in a fife and drum corps with him, and so I was very familiar with Kenny. Well, Kenny calls me right before I was going to re-enlist with the Hellcats, and says, if you didn't re-enlist yet, I want to throw something at you. I have a teaching assistantship down here at the college, and basically you would teach the drum line on the 300-piece marching band, and you do some lessons, and we'll pay for your master's degree. So I said, sounds like a good deal. And sure enough, that's what I did. I went to Louisiana and roomed with a guy named John Brennan, who was with the Cavaliers Drum and Bugle Corps. And again, another great experience. I took 2 years to get my degree. Again, Kenny, totally into the rudimental background and everything. We did, I taught percussion. I did percussion ensemble with him and everything. I taught lessons and all. But I would have kids playing the Pratt solos. They had never seen a rope drum before. I'd have them playing their Pratt solos on their juries or on recitals on my rope drum. So I was able to bring, what I grew up with to them, to Louisiana. Just another great experience. And, Kenny invited me back after I graduated. I taught for a year at the college, adjunct faculty. And then coincidentally, my long distance girlfriend from New York had got the gig at Disney in Epcot with the Spirit of America Fife and Drum Corps. So Therese was there over the winter. I went and visited her, and I became a sub with the group. So whenever I'd come visit, if there was someone out, they'd hook me up with performing with the group. So that was great. Well, wouldn't you know, I came back to visit her at the end of the school year, and was just going to be there for a couple of weeks. And she says to me, "You won't believe this. They're opening up another Fife and Drum Corps in the Magic Kingdom, and they're having auditions in 2 weeks." Again, right place at the right time, and went in there for the audition, and I felt I was good enough as a drummer, but I also played fife. So on my audition, I did fife at the beginning, and then at the end, I let everybody go before me because I wanted to hear everybody else play. And it was that kind of situation, where everyone one by one, whoever came next. So the last two guys, a guy named Vic Kolinsky, who was down there at Disney, he was a drum and bugle corps guy, but he was from Connecticut. Grew up with a lot of the people I knew in the fife and drum world. So Vic was there. He went in front of me, and he nailed it. And then I had my opportunity to go out there and play. And I felt pretty confident that I was going to get the gig. And wouldn't you know it, Vic and I became great buddies. And we were the two drummers they accepted into the group.
Nice.
And so that, those were my, that kind of whirlwind of 8 years or so of just playing nonstop in different rudimental settings, world class, the Hellcats. You look at them now, you look at some of the legends who marched before me, the legends who joined the Hellcats since, and who are marching with them today. I feel grateful to have had that experience. The time at Northwest Louisiana with Kenny, with John Brennan, with all the drummers in the line down there and teaching, was incredible. And then of course playing at Disney, and then Therese, my girlfriend who was in the Epcot Corps. I was in the Magic Kingdom Corps. We ended up leaving there and came back to New York to get married. So it was it was a fulfilling definitely a fulfilling time of my life. And those were some great gigs and great people I got to perform with.
Beautiful. Dominick, I, for one, and I'm very strong about this, I do not believe in coincidences. You know that, right? There's no such thing as a coincidence. You are ready and you're there for those opportunities. You either see them or you
I kind of lost you, Aldo. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes. No, I can see you and hear you. No, I'll say that again. I don't believe in coincidences, right?
Right.
I always believe, as long as you do the work in your preparation, those opportunities are there. You show up, it works or not, or you decide yes or no. But there's no such thing as a coincidence. In your path, here's where you are today. Here's where you are in 6 months. Here's where you were back then.
Right.
So,
sure.
These things are not coincidences, are like you establish in your mind what is important to you. And for some reason, these things just happen.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean like weird things go around it and you have to deal with them, but that's just that's just life. But
Yeah.
those things, there's no such thing as a coincidence. But getting back to the Hellcats, you remember we had the Hellcats, like I had seen them once, and I said, "Oh, we have to have them at Cosa." So we
Yeah.
invited them one year. I said, they have to be here to show what level that is. It's
Right.
beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I look at some of the legends who marched before, like I mentioned Harold Green, and of course John S. Pratt. He always said, in the army they call me John, my friends call me Jack, and then Dennis DeLucia was in the Hellcats, earlier, and so many other drummers who marched in the Hellcats, and then life went on. My brother Gus, I got out, and a few years later, my brother Gus was marching with the Hellcats, and then some of the guys, now Jeff Prospery's in there, and Andrew Porter, and I look at when I was there was a guy, Eric Scheffler. He became Sergeant Major of the Hellcats after I left, and he was there for a long time. Some great drummers. You know, it's just it's wonderful to see, to have stepped into that lineage, and to be a part of it. And then when I stepped out, to just see it continuing at such a high level, and everyone I've met were, they were all nice people. It wasn't like they were prima donnas, so to speak. But they were all nice people as well. And you meet the guys in the Hellcats, and for that matter, in the old guard now. Through the years, same thing. All nice people, and ready to share what they have. So yeah.
Exactly. And opening doors for people, because I mean, it's
Mhm.
always check this out, check that out, opening a door, recommending, and sometimes you don't know that you've been recommended to somebody just because of your hard work, and somebody's watching, somebody's paying attention. So as
Yeah.
long as we're on our path and doing always the right thing, you can't go wrong in the end. So,
Oh,
and you're
absolutely.
proving it. I mean, another proof. you know
Well, thank you. You're so kind, Aldo.
oh man, you're good people. You're one of them.
Oh,
Yes.
well,
And we've
thank
had a lot
you.
of those.
Yeah, well, you are as well. And, I will say, I'm saying that about my experience with the Army and these military drummers. I will say, when I went to COSA, it was the same thing. I didn't know what to expect with, so many drummers of, world famous drummers. And I come in doing what I do, and they come in on another level in my eyes, And, you sat down with everybody, and everyone was so friendly and so sharing, and the way everyone collaborated with the students, and man, that was just a great experience. And it really is, when great music and great people merge, it's a wonderful thing.
It's true. And as long, we set up the opportunity. I mean, it was perfect. You have all the like 25 artists, all these people, hundreds of people as participants, but the classes are small. I remember once Carmine Appice calls me over and he says, "Aldo, something wrong. There were like only 5 people in my class this morning." I says, "Yes, but Jimmy Cobb also had 4 people. Ed Shaughnessy had, but that's the whole
Yeah,
idea, is to
yeah,
be in such close perimeter to the person that it's like personal,
yeah,
up close and personal." And everybody has, like, they had 5 classes a day, so they had a
right.
chance to see everybody. But you
Hmm.
get to work with people that close. Dominic, I mean, that's huge.
Yeah,
And in a total percussion, so somebody who's a rock drummer or a jazz drummer and has never done any classical work, well, then you're with John Beck or Arnie Lang,
sure,
or with you for this drumming. And so
sure.
you get it from the people who have lived it all their lives. Some of it even created some of the stuff, which is huge. This is,
Yeah,
when you look back or you look sideways, it's like our trips to Cuba. I mean, the guys who are sitting there and they're sitting with Changuito or Piloto or any of those guys. These are the guys, and you're sitting and you're just talking. You're not just taking notes from somebody on a stage, which is
sure.
different. I mean, that there's a place for that too, but this experience was something else. And
Hmm.
you remember when you did, because we had everybody featured in concerts in the evenings, and I remember you did a concert in your concert, that was really that was nice. Everybody was unique, and you're unique with was when you did the concert with Carmine. You want to talk about that a little bit, Carmine Appice?
Yeah, I'll be honest. When I heard he was going to be there, I saw the different names of drummers, percussionists, and everything, and he was one that I was actually kind of intimidated just seeing his name that he was going to be a part of this, and yeah, I had a predetermined thing that he would be there, but he'd be sheltered from everybody else, so to speak. And so I remember on the Wednesday night after the first concert, we were in the bookstore, and he was in there, and you introduced me to him, and it was just a 30-second hello, how you doing, nice to meet you. So then the next morning, 8 a.m., I had my master class on the stage, and I was the first one. I got out there, I did my thing, and when I finished, I walked off the stage, and in the shadows there was Carmine, and he's got his sunglasses on, and he's just sitting in the dark, and he says to me, he says, "Hey, nice job." I said, "Oh, thank you so much." And he says, "Why don't we do something on the concert tonight?" I was like, I was blown away. This guy that I was intimidated by, who I only met for 30 seconds previously, wants to perform with me. And so we got together in the afternoon at his sound check, and we put something together real quick. He said, "All right, we're going to do a little of this, a little of that." He had these sticks with the lights on the end, and he said, "We're going to do a spot where they're going to turn the lights down, and we're going to play with these sticks, and then they'll come back up." And something he really noticed in my clinic, I got rope drums behind me, but also rope rudimental bass drum. And that was one of the things that he took to, and he said, "I'd really like to do a part where we go back and forth. We trade fours with you playing rudimental bass drum, and I'll play with my feet, obviously." And it just I was blown away how kind he was, and how generous he was to invite me into his concert. And then when we did it, it was just incredible, the response from the audience and everything. And that video is on YouTube, and I'll sometimes go back there because it was really a surreal moment, just unexpected moment in my life to be around someone like him, and to be able to take what I do and combine it with what he does. Yeah, it was awesome. And truly, the talk about the hang. It seemed like the whole time we were there, we ended up at the same table together. We ended up, it was unexpected, and everyone was so kind. Jim Royal was there, and Marcus Santos and Memo, and so many other drummers. Everyone was kind, but I guess because it was so unexpected with Carmine, that the whole experience of
Yeah.
drumming with him and spending time and talking with him was pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I mean the really nice thing is to see and to show that I mean what happens at COSA, of course, and that was my whole concept of this. My whole thinking is, yes, people come to study with these people, but also we don't get a chance to see each other very much. So this is an opportunity for all of us, whatever we're doing, whatever worlds we live in or work in, to spend time in a creative situation. So we set that up that way so that there was this interaction between us as well,
Right.
and the eternal student, and
Yeah.
being curious thing, and catching the imagination. And that's a perfect example, Dominic, of
Mhm.
here we are. Why are we at this place? And we're still going. It's not like we finished. I mean, you never finish. You have never arrived. I'm
Yeah.
always curious. I'm always learning. And and you talk to someone else, the same thing. And so you're thinking, because of your curiosity, and that's what puts us apart, Tom,
Sure.
is there is this curiosity of something else, something different, something, I mean, I can just imagine Carmine is watching this and he said, "Hey, that could be cool." you know so you brought something to him, you know what I mean? And he brought something to you, and everybody brings something to someone else, an inspiration, a
Mhm.
moment where that light comes on, or that door opens.
Sure.
You just never know, but you are ready, right?
Yeah.
You're on your path,
Mhm.
and someone else does this, and you never know where that goes. I mean, it's and some of the participants, I don't call them students because we're all students,
Sure.
but some of the earlier participants, I see now. I get invitations to their record launches, or I see them on TV doing all the all the big shows, or playing on the major records. I mean, Mark Juliana, for example, he was a participant for a couple of years, and he's been back at COSA as an instructor. He even came to Cuba, COSA Cuba.
Wow.
You know, but
Yeah,
it's this whole thing. When it's your time and you build it, you are so interested. If that is what pulls you, then you got to go for it. And you
sure,
have the stomach for it. You have the curiosity for it, and then you build the talent. It's work, but it's.
sure.
I mean, we are so fortunate to be able to do this, Dominic. Can you imagine doing anything else?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I hear you. No,
Yeah.
it's pretty incredible. It's funny because I do remember, let me see, PASIC 96, 94, 95, 95, 96 in Nashville. And that was the first time I met you. And I believe it was the Saturday night after the concerts. And I was with Ken Green and some of the students from Northwest Louisiana. And you came into the bar and I ended up talking to you. And you were telling us about this. I thought of it as a camp, or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was the early stages of COSA, and then and then whatever it was, 15 years later or something. Here I was, being a part of your vision. It was awesome. Just the that I heard about it in the early stages, and to be a part of it along the way, and to be able to give something, and at the same time absolutely get something back. What I got there is no different than any of the other campers, any of the other participants. Where you feel it inside. You feel it in your heart. The love of drumming, the love of people, the love of music. It's what you created was a one of a kind thing. Not that everything else isn't important, but all these other things you go do, you learn from. But COSA was a one of a kind, for me, and I'm sure for everyone who attended it.
Yes, no, no, and it was unbelievable, and it still is. But
Sure.
I remember now talking about PASIC. You just knocked a memory out here. You had invited me to play one concert with you at PASIC,
Yeah.
the Downfall of Paris. It,
Yep. That's
I
right.
remember that. So it was a concert. There was you, myself. Was there? Was Arnie Lang playing?
John Beck was on that.
John Beck was playing. Okay.
Yep.
Who else
Um,
was there?
uh, Boy, it's tough. You see, what I did is along the way, I decided when I did clinics, so many people gave me opportunities through the years, that I wanted to give other people the opportunity to be a part of what I was doing. So
Yeah.
I would start, every clinic, I would try and end it by inviting people to come up and play the Downfall of Paris. And so I believe that was 2010. And what we did is it was Nick Attanasio, legendary, the late great Nick
Yeah.
Attanasio, rudimental bass drummer, and my wife Teresa and I, and we did a tribute to the corps he played with in the 1950s and 60s, the Sons of Liberty. And so then at the end, yeah, you were there, John Beck, Dave Smith from Western Connecticut, Steve Fiddick, Steve Permatic was on there, Chet DeBow was up there from the Hip Pickles. The old guard was doing a clinic that weekend, so their whole drum line joined us. John Wooten has almost every time I've done that. John Wooten's been a part of it. I think Jeff Prosperi might have been on that. Yeah, it's been a great thing. And in fact, if you remember down the road, I think it was 2013 at the New York City COSA Weekend of Percussion
Yes,
at NYU,
at
and
NYU, right?
and we did that again on the night concert, and the same kind of thing. And Andrew Beal was with us, and boy, I can't remember. There were so many people came out and did it, but it's just been a fun thing that I've tried to do at my clinics, is invite people to come up and play the Downfall of Paris. So many of them have never played on a rope drum before, so
Yeah.
Cooperman was so generous. We go to PASIC and they'd have their booth full of drums. And for the hour of my clinic, that booth would be empty because we'd have every drum they had on the clinic. And, Jim and Patsy Ellis, just so supportive all through the years of anything I wanted to do and anything rope drum. I know you've had the same experience with them. And, the Cooperman was just so wonderful. And now Dave Loyal is taken over for Cooperman with making the rope drums. And actually behind me, I have a Cooperman drum and a Loyal drum. So I carry both of their torches, and I'm grateful to Cooperman for everything they've done in the past, and looking forward to all the wonderful things Dave Loyal and Loyal Drums are doing in the future. So at PASIC one year, I think it was after that clinic, someone came up to me and said, they didn't remember my name, but they came up to me and said, "Hey, you're the Fife and Drum guy." And they kind of hung on, and now like I even do an email, the Fife and Drum guy, so I truly, I truly love the art of rudimental drumming. I love all percussion, but my heart is totally in the traditional and not so traditional world of rudimental drumming, and of course with the Fife and Drum corps that I've grown up with. And
But when you say not so traditional drumming, explain that.
Sure. Well, I grew up in the traditional world, learning this, from Gary and from Mary, the Sturt style, and everything. You followed certain rules with the way you played every rudiment and everything. But as I moved on and I got into the music of Pratt, and of course, everyone loves Pratt's music, but Charlie Wilcoxon was not like a Fife and Drum guy. I got into his music, started experiencing so many other styles of music, and the world of drum and bugle corps, and so many different experimental types of percussion. What I like to do is I like to take traditional rudiments, that you won't find anywhere else, like 7-stroke roll and 15-stroke roll, radamucues and flamacues. You won't find those in a drum and bugle corps setting, not in their traditional form anyway. I like to take those rudiments and mix them in with more contemporary rhythms and ideas. And I am not a disciple of Joe Morello. I wish I had been and was able to take lessons with him for years, but I took a few lessons with him. And, I took from what I learned with him, and applied that into some of the solos. Kenny Washington, jazz drummer Kenny Washington, how we crossed paths, and he all of a sudden, I found out he was a fan of mine. He's talking about me on podcasts and in interviews, and we got in touch. And I wrote a solo for Kenny Washington, but it totally has more of a jazz feel to it, using traditional-ish rudiments, and it's just it's rudimental drumming where it still has the roots of the Fife and Drum corps, has the roots of NARD, and all the traditional drumming clubs and everything, but it goes beyond and takes it, other time signatures as well, different ideas, trying to create something new with these traditional ideas, traditional elements, just great traditions in our history of drumming.
Yeah, no, I'm really happy that you're keeping that flame, because, I mean, it's a big one. Those rope drums, for example, keeping that tradition in the traditional sense, but also in the evolutionary sense. So keeping both, and I think that's really important. So I applaud you for that. You've also written some books, right?
Yeah. So one of the we talked about PASIC. One of the great experiences was my first performance at PASIC. That was 2002 at the Drummers Heritage Concert. And, basically Robin Engelman, I heard he was doing this concert, and I sent him a message just saying I'm involved with the Company of Fifers and Drummers, and if there's any way I can help out, just let me know, and I'd love to, whatever, and he wrote me back. This had to be a 5-page message. Just you could feel the love he had and the passion he had behind this concert he was creating. So once he did this and he told me, everybody, I noticed there was one thing missing, and I couldn't bite my tongue. I had to respond. And I said to him, "This looks great, all these drummers you have, but you're missing rudimental bass drum. And I told him if you do this concert without rudimental bass drum, it will be an injustice to the art form. And the man you need to have is Nick Attanasio. Nick Attanasio is a pioneer. He's not the first rudimental bass drum, but he took it to a level that I don't think anyone back in when he first started playing in the 30s, I don't think anyone dreamed it would go to the level that he took it. So Robin Engelman ends up talking to Jack Pratt, and Jack Pratt says, Dominick is absolutely right. You need to have Nick on this concert. So then when Nick was going to be on it, and Robin asked him, what do you want to do? He said, I would like to play my solo, but I would like to have Dominick accompany me, and I would like to play the piece that we played with the Sons of Liberty, and Teresa play Fife on it. So, I went on. I was by no means reaching for an invite to perform in this concert. I was just trying to help see this thing, become a reality. And then Nick was the one who reached out and pulled Teresa and myself into it. And, so we did that concert. It was life-changing for me. And then because of that, I got to meet Garwood Whaley, and I talked to Garwood Whaley about my book. I sent him a prototype of my book. And, I was thinking, well, he's going to see it. He's going to say, that's nice. Thanks for thinking of me. And it was like within 2 weeks of him receiving the book, I was coming home from a long weekend, and I said to Teresa, I said, wouldn't it be something if there was a message on the machine from Garwood Whaley saying he wants to publish the book? And she's like, don't get your hopes up. It would be nice, but don't get your hopes up. Wouldn't you know, we walk in the door, I hit the button on the answer machine. It's Garwood Whaley saying, hey, I love your book. I pretty much want to publish it as is. Give me a call. Let's make this happen. And that was the first time I shared with the world the idea of not so traditional drumming. So it's the solos in there. I would bet you more people have gotten into the old guard playing those solos than anybody else, than any other rudimental literature out there. And I included 2 bass drum solos in there. And sure enough, a lot of people took to those because there wasn't a lot of bass drum literature. So The Beat of a Different Drummer by Meredith and Hal Leonard. And now I guess it's Gia is involved in the production of the book. Fast forward, rudimental bass drum. I came up with this idea that there were no solos for rudimental bass drummers. I created this book, finished it in 2010. And then I wanted to make some changes to it. And 10 years went by, and I never got the book published. And Mark Riley and George Willis started Pulsa Musica, and it's geared towards field music. And we got talking, and they said, "Yeah, let's do this bass drum book." We recorded we got people to come and record the solos, and it's the same idea, not so traditional. Some people say, well, bass drum isn't just a timekeeping thing. No, it's not a timekeeping thing. Well, doesn't it just play the framework of the snare drum? Paradiddle, paradiddle, right, left. No, it's not just that. It can be that, but it's more than that. And I think these solos, came out awesome. I also did a section in there as a tribute to Nick Attanasio. His whole visual aspect of swinging the mallets over his head while he plays and everything. And and so I'm grateful to Mark and George for publishing that book. I also, one other thing I wrote a solo dedicated to, it was actually a drum quintet dedicated to Steve Reich. And it's called Contents Are Flammable. And now it's not, when you play it, the notes are exactly on the page. There is no wiggle room for what's happening, but it's all flam rudiments, the entire thing. Dave Smith at WestCon premiered it for me. John Brennan down in Plano, Texas, he did one of the first performances. Ben Hands up in Milwaukee, he did it. So there were a few premiere performances of it, but Dave Smith had them all do it on rope drums. He had 5 drummers. 3 of them were from the Fife and Drum world. And so they did the whole thing on rope drums, and everyone starts out together, they drop out, and then there's highs and lows. And one of my favorite things I've ever written. Contents Are Flammable, and
Nice.
So I've been lucky, and that was Andrew Beal from the NYU New York City Weekend of Percussion. There, he's the one who published that at Bakovic. So again, we said it right from the beginning, the power of music and the power of being good people. And I've been lucky to meet all these good people, and they've all helped me out, and I try to do the same.
Yeah, and
I
that's
look at
important. That's
I look
important.
at. Oh, sorry.
No, I said that's important because, I mean, as people are play a big part of your success, you also have to play a big part of somebody else's success in some way, and you always deflect. You always we give, and I think that's a very strong thing, and it says a lot about people. And fortunately, we have a lot of great people in our world who do that, and it's specifically drummers and percussionists.
Sure.
I mean, we have this thing about, oh, here it is. You try this. You know, I don't sleep nights. Every time I think of something, I call somebody, check this out. Or, I have an idea when I come into the office sometimes and I walk in and I said, I have an idea. And everybody you see, oh my God, no, 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 no. The eyes go up, right?
Yeah.
That means, oh no, no, no. I mean, they're just kidding, but
Sure.
I mean, it's forward motion. None of this can is going to go with you, but what you leave behind is important. What you inspire, what you make possible, or be the example that it is. It can be, but you just have to you have to show up. You have
Yeah.
to work, and you have to be interested. You have to be interesting, and you have to do it in a non-selfish way. I mean, the selfish part is you want to do it right for yourself because it does something for you. But the greater part is seeing somebody else um, growing from that in some form.
Sure.
So I think that's important.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, in the snare drum book, The Beat of a Different Drummer, I wrote a solo in there called The Next Generation. It was dedicated to a couple of kids who were in the Young Colonials Fife and Drum Corps who I had the opportunity to spend some time with, teach a little and everything. Josh Dukes and Mark Riley. They both ended up in the old guard, and they're both retired now. And it's crazy, right? And but that whole idea of the next generation, I look at Mark, and there's another drummer from Connecticut, Brendan Mason. And I told Brendan, unfortunately, you weren't in the Young Colonials, or the solo would have been dedicated to you too. But these guys are carrying the torch. These guys are taking the whole art of rudimental drumming to another level, to another place, and it goes beyond that, because now I see another level of drummers who are doing the same thing. The Andrews brothers, playing rope tension drums, playing in drum and bugle corps, and Pat McHale playing with the cadets, and he's a fife and drum guy, and playing with the Connecticut Blues now, and there are so many younger drummers. Even my own nephews, nieces, and children. There's 19 cousins in the Cuccia on the Cuccia side of the family. My 5 kids have all, Grace, Dominic, John Paul, Tessa, Francis, all play in the corps.
Nice.
Dominic and John Paul both played at PASIC, in some of my clinics, and then my nephews, Jason and Miles and Matthew. These guys, they've all been a part of these great events, had opportunities to perform, and it's just seeing everyone, my family, like my blood relatives' family, and then to see these other kids who I treat as family, who I feel like are family, carrying the torch. And the problem, this, whenever you mention names, you leave out names. So to anyone who I should be mentioning your name, I apologize, because there are so many more than I just mentioned. But I appreciate that they have this passion that you and I have, and that they're carrying the torch. They're moving on. They are the next generation, and even as my kids grow up, and they're moving on to a point where the next generation behind them is starting to grow up. That it's a never ending, and from the moment we pick up sticks, and from the moment we decide that we have this passion for drumming and percussion and music, and we keep sharing it until the moment we play our last stroke. I feel like we need to keep helping it move along, keep sharing what we've got, the opportunities that we have, giving it to people, just like you gave me the opportunity to play it at COSA, and I'm grateful for that. These opportunities that are given to us, we need to just keep sharing them, and not only let these younger people, also the old timers, as we grow into the old timers, I've always been grateful to the older guys. That's why getting Nick Atanasio on stage at PASIC was so important to me,
Yeah. And
and
and I'm glad you did that, because sometimes we forget where things actually come from, and they have a big part in this. We should not forget. They should be part of history. I mean,
Mhm,
that continuum should always be, it's like a ship in the ocean. It should keep going, and everybody should be aware that that's
mhm,
where it comes from. And then of course evolve
right,
and get
yeah,
and render homage to the people before us who made this possible. For
right, yeah. And one more thing, I try not to babble on too much with my books and everything, right? So last year, Michael Eagle with Rhythm Monster brought me in to create a series, a fife and drum series, for rope drummers, people who have no experience in rope drums. This is where you could come and you could learn, basically bringing the muster, bringing the fife and drum corps into your home. And well, one of the things he did for me was he got all these drummers to come and record the snare drum book, The Beat of a Different Drummer, and the bass drum book, which is called The Bass Drummer. And so many of the guys I just mentioned were there. About every solo that was in there was recorded. Couple of the legends. I mentioned all the younger drummers who are still with it. Jim Clark, incredible drummer from Connecticut, legendary drummer. He came and recorded one of the solos. Scott Mitchell, who's up in Massachusetts, Grand Republic Fife and Drum Corps. They just played at PASIC this past year. Scott is, one of my contemporaries. We're kind of in that same age group, and we both have that same passion. He recorded a solo. Just to see these people come and do that for me, and for Michael Eagle to put that together for me, again, I'm grateful. I, I hope I come off always as a grateful person, because I really am, to friends, to my family of drummers, and all my brothers and sisters in the drumming world. I'm grateful to all of them and all of you.
yeah, no, no,
And of course, Jolan, behind every man, right? Jolan is a wonderful person, and was such a big part of my whole COSA experience as well.
yes. And Yolan is my wife and my boss and the person I respond to. No, no, she's incredible. I mean, every person should be that lucky,
Yeah,
to meet somebody who's your partner who just gets it. I mean, not just gets it, but supports everything you do, even though sometimes it's painful, just because you love to do, and you push each other. And I think it's also important that, of course, we do what we do, but not sacrificing somebody or something, especially people. We don't sacrifice people. But
right.
it's really nice to be able to be with somebody who you can support, because, of course, she's a musician and she totally understands this world. She's embarked. And when we started this thing, she would look, because she's a pianist and a violinist, as you know, PhD, teaches at McGill. She's one of those beautiful blonde girls that used to hate in school because he says, is it like this? You say, yes, like that. You know the one type. But she's amazing. So totally selfless. And so you do everything for them to be fulfilled, but they also do everything they can do for you to be fulfilled. And so the COSA experience, I mean, this is funny because when we got married, that's one of the first things I said. Now we're going to start this camp. And she didn't say no. She said she realized what was, and meeting all the people in our world. And she says, "You guys are crazy, but okay, let's do this." And it's been a ride. It's not over yet. It's been amazing.
Sure.
You have to write the book on, and not just from our perspective, but from everybody else's
Yeah,
perspective. What was that experience one of these days?
yeah.
But I have another thing. So, I mean, before I let you go, because we could talk all day, of course.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, the what are the things that are you working on now and hope to accomplish in the next little bit?
I will tell you, life. threw me a curveball, and that was with the whole COVID thing. It threw everybody a curveball.
Oh
But
yeah.
right before COVID, my daughter Grace and her cousin started writing songs together and singing, and they were Sophia and Grace. And I went out and started playing cajon and a little bit of drum set with them. And that's way out of my wheelhouse. Well, COVID, started to pass, and they had another cousin, Sophia, Grace, and Catherine, and they started writing together. And they all vocalist trio kind of thing, and I'm playing with drums with them. So the first year when it was Sophia and Grace during COVID, we did like maybe 12 gigs. The second year, where it was, they called the band the Midnight Anthem, and we did over 30 gigs. 2022, we hit over 70 gigs this year. And I'm playing drum set. Someone's just said to me the other day at a Christmas muster, they said, "You're the gigginest drummer I know." I'm telling you, I never expected this. It's been a whirlwind of just a different opportunity for me playing with the Midnight Anthem, and the girls. They have a brother named Ian who plays bass, and so the girls are up front. They introduce themselves, and then they introduce Ian as bass bro, and they introduce me as drum dad.
That's beautiful.
We almost have our own little following back there in the rhythm section. So that world was unexpected. And then as far as rudimental drumming and everything, I'm still writing stuff. Chet DeBoe's having his drumming for veterans event in January, and playing there, and just trying to keep writing and keep playing. I don't have anything particularly. I have a lot of stuff ready to go that I would like to get published, but it's not in the short term future. That's more of a long term project. But keep going and keep sharing. Keep sharing all this. That's my future. That's my dream.
Beautiful.
Um,
And let's keep on dreaming.
yeah.
That's yeah, and that's how it starts, and it should never end. We just keep dreaming, and that's how things come.
Yeah.
But anyway, I wanted to thank you for joining me today on this. It's amazing. It's an amazing journey, amazing story, and we can go on forever. But all I say is to be continued.